everyone, welcome back to another What's Hot in Makeup Mondays with Shamzmakeupartistry. And in today's video, I'm going to share a very first impression on an eyeshadow palette that is being hyped all over the social media. And it's none other than the Natasha Denona Sunset palette. Yes, I did get myself this eyeshadow palette. If you've been following me for some time now, you know that I'm not too much into the Natasha Denona eyeshadow palettes or any other stuff of hers, like her makeup range. I'm not too much into it. But then I decided to get this palette because I definitely love all the colors. At the very first look, I did like all the colors. They were right up my alley. This particular palette retails at $129 and it's available at Sephora as well as also available at Beautylish.com. So I personally got mine through Beautylish.com. So let's get into the palette itself. I'm actually going to do the swatches of all the eyeshadow shades, and then before that I'm going to share with you guys my thoughts on this particular palette, and also my final thought will be right after my swatches. So I'm actually wearing some of the shades today over my eye area. So this is how the palette itself looks like. It comes in a gold-like packaging, a very nice leather kind of packaging. In the front it's written Natasha Denona Sunset Palette, and at the back they do not really have much of info right here. It only says that it's a sunset palette and there is 24 months for you to use it up. Typically it's like 2 years from now and then you have to ditch this eyeshadow palette. Can you imagine like spending so much you have to just ditch it off after 2 years? Okay, well, so this particular palette, it says on Sephora it contains 15 shades of eyeshadows. And there are matte eyeshadows, there are dual chrome eyeshadows, metallic and chroma crystal finishes of eyeshadows. So it's inspired by the colors of sunset. This palette features 15 gorgeous eyeshadow shades in a combination of warm tones, burnt orange, reds, gold, bronzes and yellow. So when it comes to this sort of colors, they are definitely right up my alley. That's why I just got into getting this one. At the same time, I definitely want to test it out to see if the hype was for real. And I did have like their 5 shades eyeshadow pen, which I eventually sold it at Poshmark because I wasn't a fan of that. So I was really hesitant to get this, but since I like the colors, at the same time I wanted to review it for you guys, I picked up this particular palette. So this is how all the shades inside the palette looks like. It does come with like a plastic cover on the top which states each of the eyeshadow names, and then it does come with a mirror. You can hardly like use the mirror because it just flips all the way back, so it doesn't really make sense to me unless you're going to hold up this way to do your eye makeup or even your face makeup with this particular mirror. And let's take a look at the shadows. So there are 15 eyeshadow shades. I am actually wearing some of them today. I'm actually wearing the shade Sinai, which is right here. So you get a closer picture when I'm doing the swatches of it. And then I'm actually wearing the shade which is right here, is Ice Gold. I'm actually wearing it as a highlight shade. And then I'm wearing this all over my lid area, which is in the shade Albadi. Hopefully I'm pronouncing them correctly because they're kind of difficult to pronounce. And then I'm wearing the shade Volcano, not Volcano, Volcano, which is like a matte brown over my crease area. And then I also do have the shade Terra, which is right here. It's definitely like a deep terracotta kind of shade. So I'm actually wearing most of the shade right here, and then I use this particular shade, which is like a peachy shade, Bermuda, to blend the eyeshadows in. So at very first go, I definitely like this eyeshadow palette. I do like the pigmentation and I do like how they wear over the eye area. I am wearing this eyeshadows for about good 6 hours right now and I do not see it like budging. I did use my NARS eyeshadow primer. I am a person who needs primer when it comes to face makeup or even eye makeup. I have to put on some sort of primer, and I kind of find that when you don't set the primer with a powder, these eyeshadows do tend to crease. On me, they did tend to crease after certain hours. Yesterday I tried it out without setting my primer with a base powder before applying my eyeshadows, I did notice that it was creasing up on me, but that was about after a good 7 to 8 hours. So that was a good hour of wear on myself. But when I set it with a powder and then I applied the eyeshadows, I haven't seen it creasing as of yet. So I kind of really like that. Thus far, I do like the matte shades that I've tried out. Because this is a first impression video, so I'm just sharing out with you guys which are the shades that I kind of really liked, and then while I'm swatching, I'll be also sharing with you guys my thoughts on them. I did see some fallout on the pan, the eyeshadow pan. I did see when I'm applying the shimmer shades, there were fallouts on my lower lid area when I'm applying on my lid. So you do tend to see fallouts. It's not like it just stays put and then it doesn't but or something. I did notice all this kind of like disaster point, but not overly falling out. Like it does fall out on your lower lid, but it's not like too much of shimmer falling off all over your face area. So that would be a total disaster, but this one is not bad at all. So overall, let's just get into the swatches and then I'll come back to share with you guys my final thought on this eyeshadow. So this is how the palette itself looks like. It's kind of like a velvety gold packaging. It does have like a magnetic kind of closure so that the eyeshadows doesn't get damaged. It comes with a mirror, which I think we hardly can use it because it kind of flips all the way back. So these are all the 15 shades that is in this particular palette. There's matte eyeshadows, metallic and satin finish eyeshadows. And all the names are actually listed in a plasticky kind of cover right here, which covers the entire eyeshadow area. So let's begin with the swatches. So I'm actually going to use my Morphe M209 eyeshadow brush to swatch all the shades for you. So the very first shade that I'm going to swatch is Atmosphere. It's more of like a bronzy brown shade. And this is more of like a shimmer shade. As you can see, some of the eyeshadows, they tend to have like fallouts. Even when I'm applying it over my eye area, I did see some fallouts with the metallic eyeshadows. This is the very first one, which is Atmosphere. I'm actually wearing this over my eye area today and I kind of like it and on how it goes intensely on the eye area. However, with a brush swatch, it kind of like looks a little bit light. So here it is again, Atmosphere. Moving on to the next shade is a matte eyeshadow in the shade Sinai. So this one, I really like using it as a crease shade. So you can see how powdery they are when you swatch it. So you have to like tap off the excess when you're applying them over your eye area so that it doesn't look very muddy on the eye area. This is how Sinai looks like. Moving on to the next one is Ice Gold. This is more of like a shimmery shade. It does have some shimmer flakes in it, so you have to be very careful. Some of the shimmers tend to drop over the eye area. But I like using this as a highlight shade. So I'm just packing the shade because you can see the tiny mini sparkles in them. They tend to fly out everywhere. Moving on to the next one is Mandarin. This is a pretty orange shade. So I'm just going to pick up the shade. Otherwise, I kind of find these eyeshadows are very soft and buttery. That could be the reason there is a lot of like fallouts. But they are not bad fallouts like some of the Urban Decay eyeshadows. That's what I personally felt. So this is the shade Mandarin. It's more of like an orangey shade. And the last one in the first row is Bronze Age. It's another shimmery shade. And I kind of prefer to do brush swatches because we tend to apply eyeshadows using brushes. So it's much more practical to do brush swatches instead of like just swatching it with my fingers. So this is Bronze Age, one of my favorite shade in this particular palette. Moving on to the second row of eyeshadows, the very first one is a matte shade in the shade Volcano. And this one, I really like it as a crease shade, blending shade. It does go pretty intense. So this is how Volcano looks like. The next one is more of like a metallic gold, a shade in the shade Obed, however you pronounce it. And this is another pretty shade. I kind of really like this. I kind of feel like if you use these eyeshadows a little bit wet, they kind of go very intense and very beautiful. Moving on to the next one. This is more like a satin finish and it's in the shade Horizon. A very beautiful shade indeed. Moving on to the next one is a gold shade in Sun Dazed. So you can see this is a very bold kind of goldy shade, and you can see all the fallouts over my palette area itself. So this is a metallic finish. Moving on to the next one is a matte shade. I really like this one as a crease shade in the shade Terra. So it's more of like a terracotta kind of shade. This does blend in very intensely over the crease area. And this is how Terra looks like. Now let's move on to the last row of eyeshadows. The very first one is a matte eyeshadow shade in the shade Bermuda. This is more of like a creamy shade, which is like a blending shade for me, but it kind of like mostly blends in into my skin, so hardly noticeable on my skin tone. The next shade is a metallic finish shade. This is a very beautiful shade in the shade Morgana. It's really, really beautiful. Very, very wearable for summer. The next one is a matte finish. This kind of looks red and it's in the shade Panjin. I haven't tried out this one yet, but I'm pretty sure it does go on pretty intense on the eye area. But when I'm swatching it, it kind of like goes very, very powdery. So this is how Panjin looks like. Indeed, would look very well blended in with the shade Morgana right here. They go on like hand in hand. Moving on to the second last shade. It's a matte eyeshadow. It kind of reminds me of like a very cool tone brown shade in the shade Ignatius. So this is how it looks like when it's swatched. And the last eyeshadow shade is a matte eyeshadow, and it's definitely a yellow in the shade Sol. I haven't tried this out, but it kind of like not very impressive. And you can see it like flying everywhere, like it's really, really powdery. So I'll definitely be updating you guys what I feel on the last shade, but like swatching it, it doesn't really impress me though. So those were all the eyeshadows swatched. So I'm pretty sure you guys have already taken a look at my swatches, how it's swatched on my skin tone at the back of my hands. And I would like to share with you guys my thoughts on this. This palette is definitely on a pricier point, and many of them were comparing this particular eyeshadow palette with the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance eyeshadow palette. I personally felt that some of the shadows were kind of similar, but they don't actually look exactly the same. They are like two different eyeshadow palette. These eyeshadows tend to blend in even more smoother, though I do really love my Modern Renaissance eyeshadow palette. I kind of felt that in this particular Sunset palette by Natasha Denona, the matte eyeshadows tend to blend in very easily and they're really pigmented. Likewise, in the Modern Renaissance eyeshadow palette, their pigmentation is superb. I have no complaints about this palette because it's one of my very favorite one. But they tend to blend in a little bit more difficult comparing to this one. This is a little bit more buttery, I would say, comparing it to the Anastasia one. On my personal thought, these two palettes are totally two different eyeshadow palettes. They're not exactly the same. They might have similarity. It kind of also reminded me of the Huda Beauty Rose Gold palette. It kind of looks kind of similar, like the tones, just like the Anastasia Modern Renaissance eyeshadow palette. But this one, of course, is unbeatable comparing to the Huda Beauty one. And I did see Sephora updating that they are coming up with a Pro palette, which looks very similar to this one. So if this is not on the affordable side, definitely look out for the Sephora Pro palette, which is releasing, I believe, in June or July. That looks really beautiful, and I'll be definitely getting that one as well. So my overall thoughts with this particular palette is it's a beautiful one to have if you can afford them, but if you can't afford them, definitely there are other eyeshadow palettes that you can eye on picking up, just like the Modern Renaissance eyeshadow palette or even the Huda Beauty one. Some of you out there really like this eyeshadow palette. I kind of like felt this was like a miss or hit. But then if you want to splurge on something, definitely check out the Natasha Denona Sunset eyeshadow palette. So I hope that you found my What's Hot in Makeup Mondays with Shams Makeup Artistry featuring the Natasha Denona Sunset palette being helpful for you to decide or not if you're going to pick them up to my very next one. Stay beautiful both inside and out. Give me a thumbs up, share all your love and support, and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye.